Welcome to DDL. I'm Justin. This is T. We're going to get into it. Welcome. Got a little sideline injury here. We're dealing with some stuff. There we go. Ooh. Ouch. That hurts.
Yeah, that did not feel good.
All right. So, getting into a little bit of the fresh and fit and sort of their advice, because you've brought them up before, and we kind of had some differing opinions. And the more we've talked, I think you and I have common ground. It's like where fresh and fit are good is they do offer advice to men who are struggling with women, who are struggling with self-confidence, who are struggling with finances, and they can kind of help in some of those ways. But a lot of the downside of what they speak about is a lot of how they speak about and to women, and how women are the problem in this. And you know, it really almost becomes a more of a complaining about what you hate than a positive message. And so it's kind of that balance, you know, like with any online creator, including us. You know, you have your own brains, you can form your own conclusions. You can listen to anybody and, you know, pick out the bones, spit them out, and then take what you can. There you go. Take what you can that you can glean from them, and throw out the stuff that you disagree with or that doesn't matter to you. I think so often it's like, well, I like these people, so I like everything they do. No, you don't. No. Everybody has flaws. You have opinions you disagree with somebody on, and if you don't, you're just copying what somebody else told you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Don't copy and paste.
Right.
So it is interesting. So I'm not gonna lie. I after my divorce, Fresh and Fit, that podcast did help me out quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Just kind of relearning and getting that confidence level back up. Mm-hmm. I was already in a mode of self-improvement. Yeah. And it was just encouraging that their messaging. I did find it very encouraging. Mm-hmm. Now, when it came to the after hour show that they do, mm-hmm. I always took it with a big grain of salt, because I understood the basic primal presence underneath it. I just didn't necessarily agree with how they, similar to Democrats. I understand the compassion, the premise underneath it. Mm-hmm. I just don't agree with the policy positions. Right. It's the same with Fresh and Fit. I understand why you're trying to say it or how you could view it this way. Mm-hmm. I just don't know the way you're going about, or the advice you're giving is the way to actually go about doing it. Mm-hmm. Right. One of the best sayings that I always thought Myron said, I absolutely love this saying. Love it. Disagree with it wholeheartedly, but I absolutely love the saying. Men don't cheat to exercise options. I think it's one of the most catchy sayings that he's ever said, in my mind. Totally disagree with it.
No, yeah, that I've heard that. I heard that in the movie Boomerang in like 1993.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I've never seen Boomerang.
Yeah. I go back to like. It's almost like rules for me, not for thee. It's like, oh, men just exercise options. Okay, well, so when you're unfaithful,
well, so
like,
we've talked about why I disagree with it,
right?
But the reason why I love it so much is because the underlying premise actually makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the biological difference between men and women garner attraction much more readily than men do. Mm-hmm. Men have to put in a lot of effort mm-hmm. in order to become attractive to the opposite gender, in order to
see. And I fundamentally disagree with that part of their premise.
Oh, see, and I think that's just biological facts.
No,
women typically look for tall men. They typically look for
right
shape. They're looking for status, like how well can you provide and protect for them.
Right, but you can't change how tall you are.
No, I don't disagree with you.
And so a lot of the factors are more natural than anything else. A lot of the factors are social. You can be a high value man without a lot of money. If you are in a social circle where a lot of people respect and admire you, guess what? You alone, without being a financial genius or having a ton of money, like at church, if you're a guy who presses in and a lot of people at that church respect you and admire you, guess what? You're going to be a high value man to the women that go there. So women are social creatures, and so it's not, oh, well, that guy has a lot of money, so he's valuable, or that guy has a lot of power, so he's valuable, or that guy has a lot of...
You're insinuating things that I didn't say.
But I'm not saying you said them. I'm saying Myron has said them. I have heard him say these things.
Yeah, I would agree.
These are things he has said, and his conclusion is you have to be a high value man as far as make money, be famous, have power. And if you don't have those things, there's nothing I can do for you. Basically, like, if you don't have these things, you don't have any value to women. And that's something I just fundamentally and wholeheartedly disagree with. Now, will more women be on the table? Possibly. But it also depends on how you are as a person. And you could be great at interpersonal relationships and be highly desired and not have fame and power and wealth and all those things that kind of come along with it. Okay, so that's where I would disagree with him.
I'm going to finish where I was going with this.
Sorry.
So what I'm saying is the premise that he's saying actually makes sense because women have different attraction triggers than men do.
Right.
It is much easier for women to get to be found attractive by men than it is for men to be found attractive by women.
Right.
Right? So you did nail one of the biggest things, probably the number one item on there. Men who are respected, they have that level of status is a very important thing. Right. How do you get respect as a man? It's either through work, it's through the deeds that you're doing in your community, but that there are ways.
Character.
Character is a big one, yep. So respect is not given, it's earned.
Right. And here's where I would say you are somewhat correct in that, but we also see women with ugly dudes all the time.
I don't disagree.
So that's where women are less attracted to the superficial stuff, and that's where Myron is like trying to get you. Like,
no, he's not. No, 100%. He's not saying that you have to. Women do not care about physical, and Myron admits that.
I'm just letting you know what I've heard him say. Like, they don't care about the superficial, but you have to be a high value man. Well. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you have to make a lot of money. You have to, those type of things. And I'm just saying, women can't.
Let me just go ahead and finish this because you keep cycling back to what Myron's saying, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is the underlying premise of what he's saying is factually true. His outcome or what he's saying how to do that is where the issue lies. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's cycle back for a second. I understand where you're going with what Myron's saying. I understand that. So just 1 second. The premise is that that saying, what he's trying to convey is that men have to put work into themselves. And because they put work into themselves to become more attractive, that's why they're allowed to cheat. That his outcome, the premise of men having to put work into themselves is factually true. His outcome of saying that because they do that work, they're allowed to cheat is fundamentally false. That's what I'm trying to get at. And what you're doing is you're highlighting the things that he's saying that he thinks makes a high value man. Doesn't necessarily mean it. The biggest thing that they have to do is put the work in of themselves. That's the fundamental fact underneath the premise. Why I agree, why I love the saying, but I absolutely disagree with what he's trying to convey in it. Does that make sense?
My train of thought's gone. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize. I understand what you're trying to say. Like you do not like how Myron says that men have to be high value, and the only way to be high value is.
But we are talking about their perspective, and that was my point. Is I'm talking about their perspective.
Yeah. What I was trying to do was convey the fact of their perspective on the outcome doesn't necessarily meet where we would agree with them, right? But there are some fundamental truths that they put in there. Would you agree to that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I kind of too general for me to. I don't know what kind of principles. Like, sure they have some stuff I agree with, but I don't know. That's why I was trying to nail down into specifics. But
okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. We can move on.
Fair. Did we want to do this now or
sure?
Or did you want to go with the Auburn and Preach stuff first?
I don't think. Did we pull that up?
No, we didn't go with any of the Auburn and Preach stuff, but we were having a pretty interesting conversation regarding Auburn and Preach.
I think that would be a good discussion for possibly a different day to bring that up.
Okay, so let's go ahead and swap over here then. And we're just going to start here.
And said that I got her pregnant when I did it. And then you thought 3 years later, police that makes the same allegations again. We are better than you again, period.
Fresh and Fit, a podcast dedicated to yelling at their young male audience about how beta they are. Who would have guessed they were talking to themselves all along?
I hate him for not being a man, stand up for his child, and not taking the responsibilities after.
Fresh or Walter Weeks has pulled a Drake, except worse. Daisy Chen, his baby mother, was interviewed by Aber and Preach, who have a long-standing beef with Fresh and Fit. He claims in leaked texts to her that he can't pay for the child. His baby mother admits she doesn't care about him at all, as she's allegedly an escort. Chen was also promised a house and a marriage with Fresh, and Fresh and Fit appeared on their podcast with their lawyer, who continuously kept telling them to
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I know this is where we have a lot of agreement. Is I didn't know this. Like, I remember you had briefly mentioned it in the past.
Yeah.
And I never really followed up and looked into it because I was just like, but I did not know that, all that stuff. I mean, yeah. You want to break it down?
Well, that was kind of something that Ab and Preach did talk about, was they were kind of showing that Walter, even though he claims that he slept with, literally thousands of women, like, he's such a ladies' man, but yet there's this model who was from China, and their fans initially were saying, "Hey man, watch out, she's an escort."
That's right.
And the Fresh and Fit said, "No, she isn't. She's a citizen, and here's where you're wrong, and here's why she's actually a good woman." And he started dating her, and he got her pregnant. According to her, she said, "You got me pregnant. I want to keep the baby." And he was like, "Oh, well, I don't really want to have a child right now. Like, I'm not ready for it," type of a deal. And also from there, then all of a sudden when she said, "I'm going to keep the baby whether you like it or not," then on Fresh and Fit's podcast, the woman that they defended and said was a good person, they're like, no, she's an escort and we found proof and here's why. And it's like, those were the same videos they were ignoring that their fans sent in. And so they really changed the way that they framed her character and all that stuff. And it's like, as long as she's behaving correctly, like, it's fine, but she's a high value woman. But then as soon as she's like, "No, I want to keep the kid," it's like, oh, well, now we got to assassinate her character. Now, ultimately, I think the whole thing was a scandal. I think it turns out she may not have even been pregnant with his kid.
Hold on.
But
so you're saying a scandal on her end as well?
Yeah, on her end as well.
As for them, but
right,
from her too.
Right, but they had no way of knowing that. So their response to thinking that the information was true shows where your real character lies. Gotcha. And so for me, it's like, well, she was lying too. Okay, well, again, speaks to her character. Like they said, don't get caught up with 304s. That's definitely that type of behavior. But in that, they also are very like, hey, it is about being a man and building a family, and that's something they do like encourage. And it's like, okay, but in your personal relationships, you are hanging out with these women who you say to stay away from. You are dating these women who you say to stay away from. And you are you're at least having sex to the point where you could have a child with this person, unprotected. And so with that in mind, it's like, you guys, as soon as, oh, well, I'm pregnant, it's like, we'll get rid of him. It's like, whoa, hold on, time out there, gentlemen. Like, your whole thing is selecting quality women. Anyway, so that kind of goes against a lot of their brand.
Well, their brand when it comes to talking relationships,
right?
So, and I guess this is the thing, is like, if you're going to sit here and give the advice to only look for these to interact, but it kind of ties back to what I was saying, where they're saying men don't cheat, they exercise options. It's that faulty thought process of that. They don't think things all the way through, it seems like. I didn't know that. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, now that you're speaking of it, I remember you saying it before, and I'd never looked into it.
Yeah, I just kind of touched on it a little bit, but yeah.
But, oh, man. Yeah. I kind of feel for her, and I kind of feel for him.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crappy situation all around. But,
it really is, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the way they want to portray themselves when it comes to women is not necessarily the best way to do it, I think.
Right, and that's where it's like, it's a public persona that isn't the follow through of how they actually are. Yeah. And that's sort of where my problem lies. It's like, let yourself be who you are. And it's fine if like, whatever, but don't make excuses for the things.
Yep.
You know, don't tell men they're terrible because they did this and then end up doing it yourself. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And man, it's weird. Like, I don't disagree with how they want to push men to improve themselves. I think that messaging makes so much sense. And,
Right.
and if they were to focus on that, like, yeah, get your money up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, earn the status, get the respect. You know, if you're interested in fame and fortune, go for it. If you're only interested in making yourself a comfortable life, go for it, you know, but do the best you can to be the best version of yourself.
Right.
That messaging I agree with.
Right.
It's all these stuff that they follow through afterwards, because if you do this, then you're allowed to do this, this, and this.
Right.
And it's just like, no, you're not allowed to do anything, man. Because if you think like becoming a billionaire or a millionaire gives you the right to start treating people like crap, what kind of person are you?
Right.
It goes against your character. You basically are shooting yourself in your foot, it seems like.
Right. Right.
Was that what you were trying to get at earlier?
A little bit, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's swap back over here, and we're going to bounce over to the short, the rise and fall of Fresh and Fit.
Advice on dating and personal development. The hosts frequently invited women to their show, engaging in debates and discussions that often highlighted the differences in dating expectations and experiences between men and women. This format, coupled with their bold opinions, created a magnetic allure for viewers seeking raw, unapologetic content. The podcast's subscriber base grew exponentially, feeding off the viral clips and heated debates that regularly surfaced online. The rise of Fresh and Fit was also fueled by the hosts' adept use of social media. They showcased a lifestyle filled with luxury cars, upscale apartments, and glamorous parties, embodying the success they preached. Fresh and Fit.
Yeah, fair. So that was kind of given the rise of what I do find interesting is they're focusing on the after hour show, because there is much more content associated with Fresh and Fit. And like you said at the beginning of this episode, you were saying like you can listen to people, but you don't have to fully agree with all of it, right?
Right.
So my thing is I like Fresh and Fit when it comes to their money, financial advice, or not financial advice, the financial conversations and stuff like that. Their exercise routines, those things I've always enjoyed. When it came to the after hour shows, I'm not a huge fan. And I think that's appropriate to say like there's good things about it and there's bad things about it, and people can have differences of opinion.
Yeah, and most of everything that, unfortunately, whatever conversations they had that were beneficial got swallowed up by the algorithm and the calling girls hoes and all the stuff that kind of like that was the stuff that got clipped, that was the stuff that got mentioned. But even I didn't even know they had anything other than their podcasts where they would yell at women, because on their own channel that was all that I saw in the algorithm. And so I'd watch 2+ hours of their stuff and go, oh wow, they just really hate women. Yeah, this is interesting, you know. But and even in that, sometimes they had some valid criticisms for women, but a lot of time it was almost poisonous. It was almost like they were bitter and angry at women. And for a channel where they kind of talk about, oh hey, here's how you are successful with women, then to be so, I guess, not hating them, but you seem as though they're your adversary. Like you seem as though like you have a problem with just the idea of women and how they behave in general. And it's like, man, that's not how you cultivate and develop relationships. So it was just kind of odd.
It is interesting because in this day, I mean, hate's a pretty powerful word.
Yeah.
I never took...
I saved hundreds with Liberty Mutual.
No, that's all right. Good. I never took them, what they said, as a hate.
That's why I didn't say it was a hate. It was adversarial. Yeah.
It's adversarial. What I'm getting at is I'm kind of following up where you were on that. Is because I didn't take it as hate, but I could see how a lot of people, like, they're accused of being having a lot of misogyny. There we go, misogyny. But I don't view it as misogyny. I view it as is they see how women are behaving and they're calling out these actions. And they're doing it in a way that comes across as confrontational. And they are pointing out and using bad examples and not highlighting some of the positive aspects of it. But so I would agree with you. I don't think it's hate, but I definitely, they are definitely adversarial.
Yeah.
In the way they go after the topics that they're wanting to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not speaking to motive because you can't, but it's almost like, did somebody hurt you? You know, that's sort of the thought I have when I hear some of their rants that they go on. Go ahead and unmute before you play that.
We're not going to go on this one just
Okay.
yet, though. So let's transition back. We're going to actually go to this one. When Fresh and Fit knew they lost the debate.
No, what word is that? I'm sorry, coconuts are in my head. What word is that?
Why are you acting like silly, like you don't know what I'm talking about?
Bro, remember, coconuts for brains. What word is that? Can you just tell me real quick?
Oh, is that what happens when I'm making a point that you know is not easy for you to answer? You go, I can't hear you. I got coconuts for brains.
What's that word, Ethan? You're so smart, bro. What's the word? Just real quick. What's the word? You know, play the video.
No, I gotta get the clip. I have
What's
to hear.
that word, Ethan? Come on, you're smart, bro.
Okay.
No. Whoa.
I got coconuts for brains.
I got coconuts in my head.
It must be like Kamala fell out of a coconut tree.
When we were looking and pulling that up, and you're just like, "Did he say coconuts?" I'm just like, "I've never heard that expression before."
No,
like what?
No, I was like, well, maybe they took something from a larger conversation. No, he's just saying he's got coconuts for brains.
Yeah, like it must be maybe that's a thing from because he's from
he's from another country. I don't know where.
Oh God, down in the Pacific, not in the Pacific, the Gulf area.
I don't know.
I can't remember where he's from, but yeah, he's not. So maybe it's a saying from there.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but it is interesting, like watching the show. So when they are doing the after hours, since we're focusing a lot on the after hours, since that's where most of the content and where they're mostly known from, we're focusing on that. It is very interesting that you would have Fresh step in a debate forum because he's not very articulate. He does not speak a lot on the show.
Right.
Like, wasn't there one clip we were watching where it was like they did like a count of like how long he just sat there?
Right. Yeah, and that's to my earlier point from another podcast. It was, look, he's sitting there talking about how he's been with, thousands of women, and it's like, brother, you're not even able to form sentences on a podcast and think on the fly. And so for me, I'm like, I just don't see that. Like, you can have all the money in the world, but if you're socially awkward with women, they're gonna go, he's kind of creepy. And
we're going to lose part of that, I'm pretty sure, because for some weird reason it just did a glitch. Interesting. So give me 2 seconds. I'm going to fix the
recording audio.
Yeah, we're still recording audio now, but it
That's
quit
fine.
for a second.
That's fine.
That's why I was saying there was going to be a dead part on that one. Stupid.
We're used to it.
It keeps glitching out. There we
There
go.
we go.
Now we're back.
So
Apologize about that, guys. But yeah, I think it's funny, and I think we're gonna dive into that a little bit more on one of the last parts.
yeah.
So let's swap over. Whoops, I messed up.
Maybe close out some of those old ones.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Right here. This is interesting.
It does not sit right with me that this man goes onto sugar daddy websites and pretends he's going to pay these girls to trick them to coming onto his podcast, and then he berates them and says, well, you came on my show, even though these women are actually essential to his viewership. The reason he tries so hard and works so hard to get these women on his show, these strangers that he doesn't know, is first of all because no woman that he actually would know or would have met in real life wants to come on this show. That's why he always has to bring strangers. The second reason is because he knows that men won't listen to him talking about how to get women if there aren't women in the background. But he has to get them in a shady way because he can't actually, his advice doesn't actually work. He goes home and he sleeps alone. And we all know that. And we can tell by the anger and the hatred in his voice when he disrespects and berates these women. And it's just so sad and ridiculous and unfair because without these women, it does not sit right with.
It's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. I'll let you dive into that one first because I have some questions on this one.
Yeah, without those women, he really doesn't have a show. So yeah, I think that's probably what she was trying to get at there. But yeah, I mean that kind of speaks to what I was saying. Like it seems like there's for whatever reason there's some sort of you're the bad guys here and we're going to speak to you and show you what's up and why you're the problem and why we are superior and we're improving ourselves. But girls like you who come on this show, you know, you're just looking for a man that, and tell us all the stories about all the rich men you slept with. See, you're the problem. It's girls like, these are the girls you want to stay away from. But guys like us, you know, we can hang out with girls like this, but we're not trying to wife them. We're trying to, you know, just do what we do. And it's like, and this is a good way to live, guys. It's like, no, this is destructive for society. This is destructive for everybody.
That is fact. It's powerful, dude, right there. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That. Very smart. Very smart. I like that. So initially, I love that little clip right there because it makes me think. One is, so I know they have talked about sugar dating websites and using them for dates. And they always say that they never pay, which, okay, you probably are. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, let's not lie. Yeah. I mean, call a spade a spade.
Well, in these days,
yeah,
Instagram generation, their spot would have been blown up by now.
Oh, God, yeah.
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 Anyway.
Yeah. So, come on. You know, but I do find it interesting that there was a lot of character attacks in there as well. Probably founded, probably justified in her mind. But, you know, just because he has a persona that it almost seems like he's portraying in order to sell a product, which is the podcast.
Well, and the private signups is kind of the bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the question I really have, though, is, can you actually say that he's going home and sleeping alone? You know you can't.
Right.
You know, so I would tone down the rhetoric a little bit because your messaging was already on point. You didn't need to do the personal attacks. Because how to say it? It is an interesting question because, believe it or not, I don't think how he goes about finding the people to come onto his show is wrong. If he's going on a sugar dating site or they are, and they're saying, hey, we'll pay you to come onto the show. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, that's a business transaction,
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
And if the women are wanting to do it, and the other thing that I don't like is he's saying that he berates all the women. Actually, there's been so many shows that I've watched where he's actually having a civil conversation with some people. And when and even if they disagree, it's a civil conversation. It's not all the time that it's berating and downing and bashing, so to say. And I actually prefer those parts over the bashing portions because the bashing portions, it's like, dude, like, we get it. Like, you don't need it. Like, there was one chick that was on there that I remember watching that they actually completely disagreed on but the conversation was civil, and I thought it was. But I guess I'm more of a person that likes to have the debate and flush out issues versus, you know, and unfortunately it seems like the reason they skyrocketed as fast as they did is because they got those viral clips of them doing these bashes and people seem to like that.
Well, and I think her point is he goes home alone, meaning he doesn't have a committed girlfriend, he doesn't have a wife. And so that might be where she's coming from.
Okay. I can
maybe.
see that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, but there is something to that. It's like, because even if you are having a different girl come over every night, it's like, okay, fine, but where's the fulfillment?
Well, I'm not saying that because if I remember right, he was dating, I think her name was like Angela or something like that.
Oh, I don't know.
And she was actually working at the podcast with them and helping him do it because he has another channel. What is it? Something Reacts, like where he like breaks down criminal cases and stuff like that. She would help him do the investigations and research into that.
Oh, okay.
So he was in a relationship; it just wasn't committed,
right?
Because his stance is he can do whatever he wants.
Right, but again, what kind of a relationship is that?
I'm not going to argue that one. That's a great question.
Yeah, and especially like, and therein lies part of the bigger problem. It's like, okay, you can pay to have these girls come on from the sugar daddy websites to be on the show. Okay, fine, but when you have made it clear to the girl that you're dating, hey, I'm bringing these girls back to our home and we're going to record the show, it's like, hey, and I've agreed that I'm not going to be faithful to you. It's like, okay, how many of those girls then are you using for pleasure? And so not just the podcast. And that's where, okay, we're stepping across a professional boundary into you're kind of a scumbag, dude. Yeah.
But there was another point you brought up where you were saying like that they bring these women on and they're saying like, well, how many millionaires have you slept with? Is he? You're the problem, right? And this is why you should act like this. This is why we can do what we do. And I'm like, that is a faulty assertion, right? Just because they are making mistakes in their life doesn't give you permission to make mistakes in your life, right? So,
and for a girl like that, hey, there's a billionaire. My one shot is to maybe sleep with him. I'm not going to be able to marry him right off the bat, so I'm going to throw a Hail Mary, and maybe if I sleep with him, maybe he'll provide for me. I don't know. Not great behavior, but I kind of get it.
No, I completely understand what they're, they're like, oh crap, this could be my hookup for life.
Right.
And they throw it. I'm not throwing shade.
Right.
I'm just saying one bad behavior, because it is not advisable behavior per se, does not equate to justifying other bad behavior.
Right.
Like that's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But interesting. Radical feminist triggered Myron.
Your strategy that you are saying for women to employ of loving themselves and being by themselves and not worrying about men and pimp out the men and they're the hoes and we're the ones that are actually the pimps, all this other stuff, that will leave a lot of women single, depressed, without a man, with cats and dogs.
Only because they believe what y'all saying. That's the only reason why.
Bro, it's not about them believing. Because listen, a lot of women don't watch our podcast. It's mostly men that watch our podcast. Yeah. Women, since the beginning of time, have wanted to walk down the aisle in a white dress with a man waiting for them.
Wait a minute.
Being married and being in a committed relationship. Women want a relationship.
That was a production. That was a sold fantasy. That was produced by the people.
It's what women want. It's what women want.
Why do they want it?
It's biologically hardwired in women to want a mate. No. Your strategy that you...
I like how she's kind of pushing back on that a little bit. But, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth, because we actually saw another clip where he talked about how women don't ever want to improve themselves. And right there he's saying, well, you're telling women that they should be by themselves and figure themselves out, instead of being in relationships, and they're going to be lonely and depressed if they're not in relationships. And so it's kind of like, okay, like, do you want women to improve themselves or not? Because if you're saying women generally don't, well, this girl is on your podcast saying, yeah, I think as a woman, you should also improve yourself before you go just looking for a relationship. And so I think just in that short clip context, I think she's being completely fair. And I think Myron's kind of like, no, ladies, get in relationships. Like, you need to be in a relationship. And it
is interesting because I'm seeing what you're saying, and I actually agree with that take, because sorry guys, you didn't see that other clip that we were talking about, but 100% right, he is talking out both sides of his mouth. However, there is an underlying fact that he's talking about that he doesn't list, which is the depression rate of women over 40s that are childless is at its highest.
Sure.
Right. So there is some truth to what he's saying, but it goes back to, how do you frame it in a way that's actually positive for both men and women,
right?
Versus the adversarial aspect that they're doing. Because what she's saying is not wrong. 100%. If you're broken, you have some trauma that you need to work on. Work on it before you enter in a relationship.
For sure.
He's not wrong at the same time by saying, like, hey, we know that women will be happier in relationships because they are more social creatures than men.
Tend to be, yeah.
They tend to be.
Yeah.
Just generalities. We're speaking generalities. Obviously, there's exceptions to any rule.
Yeah.
But
well, and again, he said, well, it's biologically hardwired into you to want the white dress and the wedding, and she's like, but who sold that to us? Like, why do we want that? And some of it, I think, is biology. I think it is they do find fulfillment and happiness in relationships, but some of it is you're sold this dream. You're sold part of the American dream is, as a woman, it's being married, having children. You know, it is the white picket fence in the house, and it is your wedding day. And what do we always say? You know, the wedding day is all about the bride, and it's all about what she wants and how she wants the candles and the whatever it is. The whole thing is about what they want, and it's like. But that's the commercialized version of what they're looking for. That's the commercialized version of love. One of the happiest
production version.
The production, exactly. And where are they being sold that from? I don't think that's nature. I think that's the bigger like Hallmark type of a dream that's being sold to them. One of the happiest couples I know, they got married at the courthouse, and they had one witness because you have to have one, and they just did it on the low. And he's like, "Hey, what's up, dude? I'm married." I was like, "What? When did this happen?" He was like, "Oh, just here's a picture." I was like, "Oh, dude, that's awesome," and I was so happy for him. But his advice was great. He said, "We didn't do a big wedding because we talked about it. We want to save money for the honeymoon. We want to save money for going on vacation as a family. We want to save money for." You know,
X, Y, and Z.
All these other things, and spending anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 on a wedding. Oh my gosh, that's a huge financial expense. We could buy a car for that. So anyway, and I was just like, dude, you found a woman who was willing to forego all of the Hallmark stuff, because it truly, if marriage is the thing that women want, okay, why don't we see more of the courthouse marriages? It's because they're sold on the big production rather than the importance of being a wife and being married and the relationship.
And you're kind of, I think, highlighting something that I'm noticing between them is they're speaking past each other. She's talking the Hallmark version. She's talking that production.
Totally.
He's talking the happiness of the woman. Right. So they're talking past each other, which is what's creating that friction. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually going to kind of give this a win to both of them, because I think they're both speaking on very important topics, and I just wish they could have that clip would have. I don't know. Maybe I should go back and watch it, but maybe they ended up actually getting on the same page, like understanding that they're speaking the same things but from different perspectives. Yeah. So, that's cool that he just went down to the courthouse.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Girls say they want a certain guy, and then I tell you, okay, this was going to come with it. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I can handle that. Or it's my way or something like that. And it's like, that's just not how it goes. Like, you know, you don't become successful, get status and all that to listen to a woman that hasn't accomplished any of that. No offense. Because you typically want a guy who's better than you, right? Why would a guy that killed himself to get to a certain point listen to a woman that isn't on his level? Girls say they want a certain guy.
Can I start on this one?
Go.
Because that was a clip I wanted, because that title pissed me off. Okay. Coming from his perspective, you're going to work very hard to get yourself up, to get yourself to where you want to be. Why would you listen to a woman that is not on your level? Well, if she's not on your level, why are you taking it? Because the woman and the man relationship is complementary. It's not meant to be what I lack, my other person hopefully picks up what I lack, and vice versa. Yeah. Right. So if I busted my butt and I became whatever, and I bought a business and I got it, and the business is generating like $12 million a year or whatever, and I find someone that still in school and is working really hard to do these things and isn't quite on the same financial level. Why is it always the financial level? There's more power structures, right? This is really important. Power structures are not simply financially based. Just because someone might out-earn someone else does not make them more powerful. Does not make them more in control. There are other things that are much more powerful, in my opinion. And it's very frustrating that because the conversation could have gone a lot better, because the advice shouldn't have been why men shouldn't listen to women. The advice should be like, how do successful men who are looking for a relationship find a woman that can make up for the things that they're lacking in, and that they can make up for the things that they're lacking in as well. Like, that would have been a much better, more productive conversation than this one.
Well, and it goes back to the end all be all being money. It's like, okay, so you are in a relationship with a woman that you supposedly love, whether you're dating or married. Like, let's say you're dating and you're pursuing them. Well, you found something valuable within them. So why would you take advice from her? Oh, because you're trying to build a life together. Your goal is the two of you are one flesh. The two of you are going toward the same goal. So yeah, maybe she doesn't have a degree in business, but maybe she actually has some solid, sound advice of, hey, maybe it's even a question. Why are you doing it that way? Did you ever think that maybe you could try this? And so, yeah, it's almost like being open to taking advice is terrible if you're a powerful man. It's like, no, being open to taking advice is what makes you strong, because you can look at it and go, oh, okay, I never thought of that perspective. Let me think about that and I'll get back to you. Or hey, you know what? I already thought about that. Here's why that practically doesn't work, because I had a business and we tried that, and here's sort of what happened from there.
You want a good example?
Go ahead.
Elon Musk. There's video of Elon Musk talking about one of his rocket launches, SpaceX, doing his things. And the interviewer says, well, why are you doing this? And he's just like, yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to get some people to look into that. And then a year later, the same interviewer is doing it for the next launch. And he's just like, yeah, I remember that. And we went ahead and we swapped it over to doing what, and I'm just like, Elon's one of the most powerful people. He didn't shut down any advice. And that's not even a relationship context.
Right. Right.
Like,
and he's obviously more powerful than the guy who asking the question.
Exactly. You're spot on, dude. Like,
well, and that's kind of more like, we're building something. Yeah, I might be smarter. Yeah, maybe, or hey, maybe I'm smarter in finances. Maybe you're smarter in social interactions. And hey, let me learn from you. Let you learn. Like, this is, if we're building towards something, if I'm not looking for a 304, I'm looking for a woman to build a life with. Yeah, I'm going to take some advice from her. Now, ultimately, I think the man should lead and lead well, but it's so vital that you take every piece of information, open communication between the two of you. And if you don't have that open communication, oh, well, I don't take advice from women. Great. What? I wonder why you're on your fourth marriage.
No, like if you're in a relationship, and typically there is always going to be a leadership role. I would agree with you. I think the man should lead the relationship. But just because you're in a leadership role, just because you're trying to coach your partner, doesn't mean you are not coachable.
Right.
That's a two-way street.
Right.
For as much as you're trying to show how to coach them into being the best version of themselves for you, they are going to be doing the same thing to you. So if you won't listen, like, why would they choose you? Like, just because you have money, they're not going to choose you just because you have money. If they do choose you just because you have money, they don't actually care about you.
Right. Right. And you've started the marriage on a lie. And guess what? In a few years, when they get tired of you, they get half. So all that stuff you built even without them, guess what? Now you're worth 10 times what you were before. Well, you didn't take their advice. Well, now they've got half your stuff. So who's really the smart one in that relationship? I'd say it's the person that didn't have to work hard and build a business from the ground up and married a successful person and went, you know what? You're kind of a jerk. I'm out of here. Yeah.
Okay, so we're on our next section.
312 to 320.
Enough 2 years ago, it was Myron who allegedly got an OnlyFans model pregnant and was begging not to raise it, so it's absolutely hilarious to hear them preach about conservative male roles and how important family is when they've both done the same thing.
So yeah, that shows that it didn't just happen to Walter, it also happened to Myron. So,
but what's interesting though is that broke down a little bit more of calling them out for preaching conservative values or being important to fatherhood, and then when push came to shove, they didn't follow through on it.
Right.
Which is interesting because I've never heard that before. So I'm learning some things about them on the background that I didn't know that actually kind of do shade it a little bit more in a negative manner for me because.
And welcome back to this U.S. Open office plan.
Miller because if you're going to be about encouraging men
to be a strong father,
if you're going to encourage men to be stronger men, part of being a strong man is like taking responsibility for your actions.
Right.
And a child is one big responsibility.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
it does, like I said, it does kind of shade me more negative hearing this.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's true is besides the point. It's,
yeah.
So, okay, the next one, 312 to 328.
On that platform alone, but it's a lot harder to be a strong father than to bounce from girl to girl that you roast on your show to millions. If you despise these OnlyFans models so much, why are they who you spend your life with both on and off camera?
Some know me as the throw goat. I'm an OnlyFans. I love to suck.
They've even got...
So, wow. Yeah, those are the women that they not only are hanging out with on the podcast, but it is the people that they're doing their interpersonal relationships with as well. And again, it's one thing to say, oh, well, don't hitch yourself to those people in public, but then in private, you're actually doing exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thinking of the podcast that they put out, I do think it's healthy advice to show like, hey, if you're actually wanting a strong, stable relationship, you shouldn't be going after a girl that is open to doing OnlyFans, because if you have strong values or strong family values, that woman's probably not going to have, the value systems are not going to match up, which
right.
means it's not going to work out.
Right.
But I mean, like me personally, I would never want to get in a relationship with an OnlyFans girl.
Right.
Anyone that's willing to do that obviously is not probably going to fit well into my lifestyle.
Right.
So I think that's fair advice. But it is very interesting that they're sitting on here giving that advice,
right?
But then in their personal life, they're still doing it.
Yeah, and that's
the point you're trying to bring up,
yeah,
right?
Whatever you want to do in your personal life, I don't care. Like, do I care as far as I care about you as a person? I hope you choose the moral path. I hope you get some principles in you. I hope you learn something for sure. But at the end of the day, I'm not in control of your life. When you do destructive things, you're going to have destructive results. And I'm going to step back and watch. But it's that aspect of, if you want to go ahead and go for OnlyFans models, fine. If that's who you exclusively want to date, totally fair. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But it's just weird that you want to do that, and then you want to talk about guys don't go for these girls.
Yeah.
It's not just hypocrisy. It's just be okay, be secure in who you are. If you want to date OnlyFans models, okay, then talk about it and say, here's why I do it. But when you're hiding it behind the scenes, it's like, okay, well, you obviously have a problem with it.
So
because you're talking about how you shouldn't do it,
yeah,
and then you're living it out.
Clarification question.
Yeah.
You said it's not only hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It is hypocrisy, but what else is the next one? Like, I didn't quite understand what you were trying to say.
It's not just hypocrisy. It's not just like do as I say, not do as I do.
Uh-huh.
But it's also, you're betraying what you are claiming are your values. Like, this is what you hold deep to you.
Okay.
And so it's not just hypocrisy, it goes deeper than that. It is a betrayal because it's not just here's what I say in public, but you have an audience as well.
So you're betraying your audience.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
You.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure it out. I'm like I see the hypocrisy, but I'm not quite following what you mean by it's more than that as well.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, I get that.
And when you've built listeners for years, literally, who are like, yeah, we're on the same page, and you've betrayed their trust.
Yeah.
And so
the funny thing is, like I said, like I don't think that messaging is bad. What I do think is bad is the hypocrisy that they are showcasing. Like, hey, we're telling these, and you are right. It is actually a form of betrayal because you're betraying your fans or your audience. But I think the other aspect of this is like, just because a woman does OnlyFans does not make them non-relationship material. It just makes them non-relationship material for some men.
Yeah, for me.
Like there's going to be some men that are not going to be interested in doing it, but that doesn't make the woman less valuable. Like, I remember having this conversation in a personal life, and they were just like, well, why wouldn't you date an only? And I was explaining it. I'm just like, I don't think our values would line up. Like, I want someone that's true to me, who's not willing to show their body to other people, who don't use men like that, and who actually respect themselves, right? Very basic principle things.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I think that woman who decides to do that is less than a woman or not valuable. No, that's not what it means. It just means, like, I would not be interested in in the relationship context with them.
Yeah.
You know, it's...
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there's different standards that I have for, like, the person I'm dating versus some other random person. Like, girls can do what they want. Well, the person that I'm dating, hey, here's kind of some boundaries I have. If you're on OnlyFans, I'm sorry. I don't want the woman that I'm going to marry and have children with to be, number one, to be actively doing it, obviously, but therein lies part of the stigma. I heard a girl who was a porn star who said, oh my gosh, I can't believe men will just judge you because I used to do this. It's like, but you're still doing it. You're still currently in the industry. And the problem is, when you're able to see everything about that person, literally, it's like, you know what? That's too much. And that's fine if that's people's boundaries. Like, you're upset that guys are like, yeah, I don't want a girl who has had that happen to her on camera. That's fair. Like, I'm sorry. I want my wife to be for me. And look, I have made my mistakes with sexual activity. I understand that the partner that I'm with may also have made some mistakes as well, and that's okay. The difference is, are you flaunting it for everybody to literally see, or it's like, hey, you know what? I've messed up in life. I've been forgiven. You know, here's kind of the road forward. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the big point is, I think we're on the same page. I hope you guys understand what we're trying to say. And I kind of feel bad that I didn't know this about the background, but I guess that makes sense, though. I guess when you think that men don't cheat, they exercise options, that I guess that makes sense. Like I said, I've never really been a big fan of their after-hour show, and this is just making me less of a fan of their after-hour show. Unfortunate. So this is the last segment that we're going to do. And let me swap it over. And this is a little bit longer of a segment.
Of all things, or getting outed as simping for sugar babies or women for hire for dates. They both claim to use it for dating or getting guests. Who knows if that's true after...
Do I know you?
Do I know you?
Okay, because I'm sure you want to, because the 1,000 bodies. Go ahead, let it out, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That woman is hanging out with him. She was confirmed she was from one of the sugar baby websites, and he said she's not like all the other girls. He had her on the podcast. He brought her back to the podcast. He was doing clips with her. She looks so uncomfortable and terrified of him. And he's on a live stream, and he's got a persona to present before all of his followers, and he leans in for just a kiss on the cheek. She won't even, like, lean in like this for it, let alone face to face. Like, look at her body language. She is so uncomfortable with him. He's already paid for her to be on the show, so she's already received payment, and that's how she's behaving around him. I'm sorry, that's not the game of a man who has had success in that field. I'm sorry.
1,000 bodies.
Yeah.
All right, I figured I'd pause and let you get that one.
Go ahead.
Miami, Florida. Let's look through.
When I met her, I saw she hadn't been tainted yet.
It really is a never-ending drama cycle that's destined to face the banhammer eventually. But they'll continue attacking the world, all the while allegedly their own employees beat up guests based on their race. Considering Fit has a book called This, of course, so...
I actually have that book. It's actually not too terrible. Sorry.
Further division, that's the solution. And Fresh, I mean, he thinks 2 + 2 is a man-made concept.
Who decided 2 + 2 = 4? Man did, right? 2 + 2? Who decided that? You?
No one decided 2 + 2 = 4.
So, how did it come about?
instead of, I don't know, a fact of reality. That was enough to know he has the internal monologue of Homer. It's all good though. They'll continue to try and get remonetized by YouTube and yell into the void about values they do not live by.
Next year, this time, we're gonna lap you, motherfucker.
How's that going?
Just turn these clowns off. Bye-bye.
Well, I mean, obviously he's not sure that 2 + 2
I'm
equals 4
currently
because,
looking-
Well, he's got coconuts for brains, so.
I never saw that clip. 2 + 2 is 4? That's a man-made concept. What?
Yeah.
What?
It's like, no, it's just a fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So I paused it. I do have that book. I bought the book more or less because I wanted to read it. And I read it. And again, it goes back to what you said at the beginning of this episode, which is just because you like one portion of one thing of someone doesn't mean you have to like everything. Like, it applies with Donald Trump. There's some things I like about Donald Trump. There's other things I dislike about Donald Trump. Same with Biden. There's actually some things I like about Biden, but there's other things I dislike. Same with the book. There was really good stats and information and some biological traits that make a lot of sense. It's some of the conclusions I'm just like, I don't necessarily... I think what I gained, and this is pretty much anytime you're ever reading and trying to learn stuff, is you take what what you can from it, right? And the biggest thing I got out of that book is don't forsake yourself for the sake of a relationship. That's kind of the premise that I got out of that book. Make sure that you're putting in if you're putting in more energy than they're putting in, then there's a problem in the relationship. There's a power imbalance, right? And so just because they're throwing out why women deserve less and saying like, oh, this is the type of man that you're listening to, the book actually wasn't actually bashing women in any way, shape, or form. It was actually pretty good about encouraging men to make sure you're valuing yourself inside the relationship and don't invest in someone that's not investing in you as well. And I think that's a very valid point.
Yeah.
Obviously the title was meant to be controversial.
Right. Sell some books.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean that's sort of like, you know, when we had the discussion where you were like, oh hey, here's the stuff with Fresh and Fit, and I really like them, and I was like, you do? And so yeah, so that was kind of a visit of, okay, this is sort of a bigger perspective of like where they came from, where they were, and how they've really fallen off as far as monetization on YouTube, monetization on Twitter.
And we didn't even hit like the controversial points that you were talking about.
Right.
That's probably a whole other episode that we would have to do. But
that would tie in with the Auburn Preach side of stuff too, where he was behaving. The best way I can describe it is he just said something about 30 times that you just can't say on any platform really and expect to have either a big following or B to stay monetized.
So speaking of platform, you told me something that I didn't think was possible in this day and age.
Yeah.
Go ahead and share it. I didn't know this.
No, I briefly mentioned it, but yeah, they got kicked off of Twitter. Like they got demonetized, not kicked off, demonetized on Twitter.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like kicked off, like banned from the platform. I'm like, how?
No, yeah,
like,
demonetized from Twitter, and it's like, how do you get demonetized? You literally give them money to monetize. Yeah.
It's so weird. So weird. But yeah, so you definitely opened my eyes on a lot of the background stuff that I didn't even. Granted, I also didn't really care about the After Hours show. The After Hours show never really intrigued me that much.
And there was tons of drama that we didn't touch on because it's just not important. It's kind of more the character of who you are, and that's more what I look to.
But you know what it did, kind of doing this, is it kind of makes me question whether or not the what I thought was positive influence during their like the day shows, like on like crypto investing, stuff like that.
Hold still.
It now makes me question, like, if you can do this on your night show and then have a different behavior, like, are you? It almost seems like a grift.
And that's the hardest part, is how many of these channels are just trying to get money out of you.
Yep.
And a lot of it is like it has become. Podcast is the new media. Okay, how do we monetize it? And there's a difference between how do I be smart and monetize this thing I'm doing for a living and pouring my effort and time into, versus how do I scam the most people out of the most money? And it's hard nowadays to be like, is this a genuine person or not? And
Yeah.
so I'll just say, beware. If they have a public persona, but their private behavior is a lot different, beware.
Fair. All right, let's go ahead and say goodbye. Thank you guys for tuning in. Till next time.